I was hoping to do a update video on site and things like that, but just still unable to get down there as often as I would like. Something that may change in the future or near future, we shall see. Anyway, if you've been keeping up with my solar update here, this racking system is an EG4 Brightmount. This is their original non-adjustable one. So I had one of these and one that was adjustable, and they were both down in front of the RV, and you can see it's in a lot of shade. What I had mounted on this one, the original one, I think I had 400 watt panels, and which are quite a bit narrower than these, and I think a 280. So I had like 5 panels on there, and those were split a little bit between the 12 volt system for the RV and stuff, and no more than I was down there. It was doing okay. Once I've been able to get all this kind of stuff up here, I wanted to move this, at least one of them, and eventually the second one up here if possible. Eventually I'd like to have a structure here with a bigger roof and a lot more panels on there. I've got plenty of panels, but I wanted to move at least one of the Brightmounts up here to be in the sun more than a couple hours a day. It really didn't matter what I had down here. If they only get full sun and they're in series across for an hour or two a day, I'm just not going to get a whole lot of power. Originally I was going to try to take down some of these trees and limbs and open that up so that they get more sun, but I need a man lift to do that, and I can't rent one because I never know when I'm going to be down there and be able to do the work. So once I kind of got this mounted, got this moved, and again these little mounts here I kind of cobbled together. I've got a couple of pavers down there, then a couple of concrete cinder blocks, and then a thick paver on top, and then it's all concreted together to make a little pier. So all I had to do was buy the concrete to mix up, and there's a little over a bag each, and then the tap cons to mount the feet down. That's all I had to buy. Everything else I had. Now I could have put the 4 260 or 280 watt panels back on here that I had, and just to give you an idea, these are 560 watt panels. Now they're not double the power in the same physical space. They are twice the power, and they're twice the size. These things are over 6 feet tall. They are 70 pounds each. I'll show you the ad from them. But if I put the 4 260 watt panels on here, and they're used panels, so let's call them 250 watts, then the absolute max I'm going to get out of that's 1,000 watts, which is not bad. I mean, that's acceptable. That's definitely acceptable, especially since they're going to be up in the sun probably 3 times as long of the day. So instead of 2 hours a day, maybe getting 6 hours, then I'm actually getting, instead of 2 kilowatts, from that array, I would be getting maybe 6 kilowatts, which is enough to keep the batteries charged and still run what few things I have in the cabin when I'm not there. So what is running when I'm not there, whether I am or not, either way. The inverter itself, it's 3,000 watt EG4, the little yellow one, that burns about 50, 60 watts continuously, whether it's providing power to anything else, to a load or not. So there's a 60 watt light bulb, incandescent light bulb, 24/7, just to have it on. Then there's the Starlink, and at least when it's not too cold and the heater's not on, that probably burns about 40 watts. I've got a small chest freezer that I have kind of a cool bot top device on to turn it into a refrigerator. That runs 24/7, so it comes on, goes off, comes on, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like as far as the power curve and stuff. Then a couple other little knickknacks here and there. So those are loads that are needing to be powered even when I'm not there. And with the 1,000-watt array down here, I was getting on a really, really good day, between that and the 4 panels that are on the side of the shed, side of the cabin, that get a lot of shade and stuff, I was getting maybe 3.4 kilowatts a day. And with that, then my battery bank, if I charged it up to 100%, did not go down there, didn't turn on any lights, any pumps, anything, I would lose about 10% of battery capacity per day. So that 3.4 kilowatts kept me from having to run a generator every day or turning everything off when I'm not there. But I was losing about 10% of battery capacity a day. And my battery bank is currently 600 amp hours of 48. So it's a full stack of 6 rack mount 48 volt 100 amp hour batteries. And I mean, if I could get up to 4.5 kilowatt hours a day, that would probably keep me on good days, a week of good sunny days, keep me even. I wouldn't really gain a whole lot, but I wouldn't necessarily need to go down there once a week or once every other week and run a generator just to top the batteries off. Of course, if I was down there more often, then I'd be using more power, and then I'd need to run the generator more. So that was the whole impetus of trying to move this up there, putting the 4 250s up here, getting 1,000 kilowatts at a time, probably 6,000 kilowatts a day on a good sunny day. That would actually lead me to charging the batteries, getting them hopefully back up to 100% at some point every day that had decent sun, not having to run the generator a whole lot. However, I thought, well, could I put bigger panels on here and do a little bit better, or modify the rack in some way? So there was this, and I'm really not a big fan of these huge solar panels, simply because I'm down there by myself and they're just huge. They can be tolerable for one person on a ground mount, but if you were going to try to put them on the roof or anything like that, they're just too big, too heavy, and it's too dangerous. If you get up on the roof, I'm 5'5", trying to, get up there with a over 6 foot panel that weighs 70 pounds. That's just not safe. But Sungold Power, a brand that I'm starting to have more affinity for and like. I think they're getting some decent products and stuff at a decent price point without having to go all the way up to Victron. They had a sale, and another thing I didn't really like about these huge panels was typically when you buy them, whether you buy a lot of times they want you to do a full pallet wherever you give them from, just because shipping is so high. But even if you got 10, it would come on a pallet, a large pallet, would not be lift gate. You really had to have someplace an 18-wheeler could pull up, and you could use a forklift to unload them. Whereas when you get, say, 400 watt and smaller, then they're on a smaller pallet, or you can order 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, and it's easier to unload if you don't have a dock. Or Sungold Power, when these 560s came out, when I noticed them, not only were they having a little bit of a sale, nothing earth-shattering, but you order them 2 at a time. So they come packaged 2 at a time, and even though they're oversized, you don't require a dock. They don't have to be shipped someplace that has a loading dock. So I thought, okay, let me give them a try. And by the way, these are bifacials. I'll show you the specs in a second. So I went ahead and ordered 4, and 4 of them were about $1,500. Now 560 times 2, you've got 1,120. So a little over 1,000 watts per pair. 2,000 watts for 4 of them. $1,500. It's a little less than $1 a watt. So the price is still coming down overall. So I went ahead and made the investment, and got surprised when they got called they were being delivered. They did come on an 18-wheeler that had a lift gate. Now, this particular truck driver has actually delivered stuff for me before. He seemed to remember the house and everything. But I was able just to take the pickup you see here back up to the lift gate, and we just scooted the 2 boxes. So 2 boxes with 2 panels, 140 pounds each. With this pickup with the gas tank in the back and the tailgate down, that is a 6-foot bed, not an 8-foot bed. So it's stuck out past the tailgate, maybe a foot. Not too bad. I just strapped it down, drove down here pretty easy. I didn't think I was going to be able to get all 4 of them. My measurement said that I needed about 4 more inches. These are about 15 foot long, and the panels might have just barely fit, other than the fact that the mounts, what connects the panels to the railing, they're about half an inch, between the panels, and so you take over 1, 2, about 3 inches just for the clamps, essentially. And that put it to where I need about 3 or 4 more inches to be able to put the 4th panel on there. But even with just 3 of them, that is 1.5 times the capacity of what I had on there before. So I've got about 1,500 watts of capacity just with these 3 panels. The voltage is around 40 volts, a little over 40 volts per panel, which would be 20, for half a panel. So those 3 together, about 120 volts max, 120, 122, something like that. The charge controller that I had it on previously is a Victron 150 35, so it can handle up to 150 volts coming in. So this 120, 125 on a really, really, really cold day would be just fine. That works with it just fine. I've already kind of temporarily pulled my cables over and hooked it up. So how is it doing? So now that I've got them there, I've got 3 of them up, I've got an idea how to possibly add the 4th, and we'll talk about that maybe in a different video if I'm able to do it, and because that will necessitate a couple other changes. But how has the change done? Okay, well, first of all, here's the panels. I said 560. These are 460s. I thought they were 560. No, yeah, I don't know why it says 460 there. They're 560 watt, 4 panels. I guess right now they would be $200, over $2,000 for that. I'm just kind of curious. Let me do 2 panels. Yeah, so 4 panels right now, $2,000. I paid about $1,500, so I got a bit of a deal. You've got the specs here, the 560s, bifacials, which I'm not too worried about. I don't know that it's going to do a whole lot of good the way I have them mounted. The VOC is 50 volts, so on a really, really, really cold day, I could potentially get, with 3 panels, 150.3 volts. I really think the Victron would be able to handle that. I think they're built well enough that a 0.1 volt over is not going to fry it. I'm not going to be anywhere near a 1500 volt overall voltage. They are about 70 pounds each. You've got the dimensions. They were the thickness matched my 250, so I was able to use the same clamps. They say 5-year, 95% output warranty, 10% or 10-year, 90% warranty, 25 years, 80%, 10-year material workmanship. So these brand new panels. So how's it done? Okay, so let's go to my Victron, and I've got 2 charge controllers, and they are connected to this Brighmount here. It is 18 minutes after 12, 18 minutes after noon right now, and you can see that array of 3 panels is putting out 1,316 or 1,300 watts right now. The other little bitty array I've got is putting out about 93 watts. So I'm getting about 1,300 watts right now going into the batteries. They're showing per the shunt showing 100%, but of course they are accepting, so we're getting close to setting the batteries back to 100% state of charge, and about 344 watts are going out to other loads. That's actually AC and DC. I'm not using a Victron inverter at the moment. I'll show you the other inverter. So this is not this last week, but the week before. This is the week before I put those 3 panels in line. And what we're seeing per day, so September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th for that week, the total power generation between both arrays that I had previously, we're getting 3.14, 3.29, and that's about the max at the current sun angle that I'm going to get. I think I might have gotten up to 4 kilowatts at some point over a 24-hour period. That's the most I've ever gotten. So now let's come to this last week, because really I put the panels online on the 8th. So we'll go to that. Graph looks fairly similar, except for 3 kilowatts is down here. So the first full day that they were on, and the batteries were down to about, in the 80% mark. So actually you see here the battery min, it started at about 76%. So I went from 76% up to 100% in one day just on solar. And I got 10 kilowatts, almost 10.5 kilowatts of solar in. That is over 3 times the amount of power generation as my best day before, basically, or a very, very good day from those 3 panels, which are effectively acting like 6 of my other panels. The next day I got over 10 kilowatts. The next day I got 9.3. And really these other ones that are getting less, the days were just as sunny, just as long. The only reason I'm getting less is if you notice up here, I started at 94% and went to 100%. Started at 93% and went to 100%. So what's happening is the stack of batteries, the battery bank, is getting charged to 100%. They can't accept any more power. So from that point, the rest of the day, the power generation is going just to the loads. And that's it. So it kind of throttles back. So all of these days have been sunny, but you notice they're hitting 100% every day. And I can kind of show you that a little bit, even like today, because again, it's just afternoon. We started at 92%, 91%, 91%. And so around 8 a.m. we start doing some power generation, and we are at 100%. Now it's still accepting some, but basically by about noon or 1 o'clock every day since I put those online and we've had sun, my batteries I've gotten to 100% fully charged without a generator every day since I put them online with decent sun. And that actually means I'm losing power because I don't have any place to put it. So I could be storing more if I had more battery, which I do have one that I'm trying to complete, or if I was down there using it, then like right now, I could put on a kettle and make some noodles, or I could use an inductive cooktop and cook some eggs and stuff like that. I could have the air conditioner down. I could be using that power and still be at 100%, and in the day, in the sunny part of the day, at 100% and run off batteries until the next morning. And every one of these days that it's gotten to 100%, I'm also running the mini split. So the mini split is also running. And the last couple of days, if you notice, like yesterday I only did 6 kilowatts because the battery got to 100%. The last time I had a chance to go down there for a couple of minutes, I actually turned the mini split from 86 degrees, which is the highest it'll go. I think I turned it down to 76 degrees. So I am powering the mini split, keeping the cabin at 96 degrees, and still charging my batteries by 1 o'clock in the afternoon with those 3 panels. Now then, how much power is being used. So this gives an idea. So the inverter is a EG4 3000, and I'm using Solar Assistant to monitor it. So it doesn't have any solar or anything coming in. It's not on a grid. All it's showing me is the battery percentage. Now this one is the inverter talking directly to the battery, so it's getting the 99% from the battery BMSs, not from the Victron shunt. Currently there's 183 watts being drawn or supplied in AC. These tall spikes you see are the, like right here, each one of these spikes is the freezer slash refrigerator compressor coming on. So it goes from 65 watts, which is probably the Starlink and a couple other ancillary little bitty loads. It goes from 65 watts up to about 184, so you're talking 120 watts for a couple of minutes for the compressor for the refrigerator. These spikes, when it jumps up to 138, that part, that's actually the mini split. Okay, so those are the mini split, and then the mini split compressor comes on, and or the refrigerator slash freezer at the same time. We get spikes, and the highest spike we've gotten right there is 648 watts. So this area right here, you've got the mini split fan going, stuff like that. Occasionally the air, it ramps up the compressor a little bit, cools down, gets a little bit hotter in the day, has to work a little bit harder to keep it down, you know, the temperature where I want it. But that gives you an idea of how much power the mini split, and this is a 12K mini split from Senville. This is like again a 3,000 watt inverter, and the biggest spike is 292 watts, nowhere close to 3,000. If we go last 7 days, that gives you an idea. So here's 1,000 watts up at the top, and that inverter will do 3,000. So this is the bottom third of the capacity. I mean, you're seeing the Starlink and the refrigerator, the mini split comes on, a little bit more, mini split comes on, you know, there. So right now I am having no problem whatsoever charging the batteries to 100% every day by 1 o'clock, powering the Starlink and powering the mini split and everything else down there. With that, this gives me a decent little amount of headroom, so if I'm able to go down there and stay overnight, whatever, then I've got headroom to not really have to worry about how much power I'm using, because I don't have that much stuff down there anyway. But I could pretty much use whatever I wanted, wake up the next day, and as long as there's going to be some sunshine, probably recharge the batteries to 100%. And again, this is 600 amp hours at 48 volts, and I've got half of that. I'm building out another 300 amps in a single battery and 2 more of those. So I could potentially have 2.5 times as much battery, which at this rate would probably, even if I'm down there, would probably run me for several days, if not a week, with no sun and no generator. So that's kind of an update. It's kind of long and wordy, but so far so good. I just need to figure out how to get that extra 4 inches on there, get that 4th panel on there, and probably what I will do, because if I put the 4th panel on there, the voltage of that array in series is going to go over what that Victron charge controller can handle. Then so I'll have to move it to a different charge controller, and the 2 options are going to be move it to the EG4 all-in-one inverter thing, in which case it'll start showing up here, and so we would see it here, we would see that the power generation being calculated in all of this, or I add it to, I do have a 450 volt 100 amp Victron charge controller already mounted, already wired up. Everything is there other than plugging in the solar panels. I could connect it to that, and again it would take up to 450 watt or volts of PV input. The EG4 will take up to 500 volts input, but then it would add all the data, PV data, into the Victron VRM. And one of the other things that I'm looking for is I want to be able, I'm getting this data, I want to be able to be sure that I can get enough solar coming in to run everything I want to run for the most part and all this kind of stuff. And instead of the inverter drawing 60 watts continuously, be able to switch over to the two Quattros, Victron Quattros that I've got, which would give me 120 and 240, which I don't need the 240 right now. Instead of 3,000 watts, it would give me 20,000 watts. So almost 7 times as much available power. But those two Quattros combined will draw not 60 watts and continuously. They will draw about 200 watts continuously. So that is more overhead. I could probably do that right now, but I would probably be right back where I was, where basically all the power I generate is just keeping me even without using more power. So I'm learning as I go. I'm just curious, and that's part of the reason I'm not throwing a big system up there all at once and calling it done. I'm doing it one step at a time, one component at a time, and then monitoring it and seeing how it works. And how much do I have to do? Right now 3,000 is fine, and for the foreseeable future there's really no reason to go unless I start drawing more than that. Now if I tried to do the hot water kettle and the which is about 1,500 watts, if I tried to do that plus the hot water heater, which is the electric single element 1,500 watt, there's 3,000. There's maxing out right there. And then if I try to do the inductive on top of that, then I'm well over the 3,000 watts that inverter would supply. I need to bump it up if I tried to run all of it at once. I'm not doing, so it's just a balancing. If I'm down there all the time and I start doing that and or trying to run power tools, then yeah, I'm going to have to either replace the 3,000 with something bigger, or I've already got the Quattros there. Just turn them on. But the moment I switch over to them, I'm burning another 140 watts continuously 24/7 that needs to come from somewhere on top of my loads. So pretty wordy, kind of wordy, kind of nerdy, and I was hoping to be down there to be able to actually show on the camera, but I'm not. So this is it.